The hum of conversation and the gentle clinking of dishes filled Southern Comfort, a modest cafe nestled in a quiet corner of Atlanta. For Layla Ramirez, the cafe was her second home, a refuge from the chaotic world beyond its doors. Tonight, the air felt no different, with regular patrons occupying their usual spots. Layla moved gracefully between tables, balancing trays with an ease that belied her inner exhaustion. The bell above the entrance jingled, a sound so routine it barely registered. But when Layla glanced up, her breath caught. Standing in the doorway, dressed in a sleek black hoodie and dark jeans, was none other than Floyd Mayweather. The air in the cafe shifted, a tangible ripple of recognition spreading through the room. Conversations halted mid-sentence as all eyes turned to the boxing legend. He scanned the room, his presence magnetic yet understated, and chose a seat near the back, away from the curious stares. Layla steadied herself and approached with her usual warm professionalism, though her heart raced. "Good evening," she said, her voice steady but her palms slightly clammy. "What can I get for you tonight?" Floyd glanced up, his eyes calm yet piercing, like a fighter sizing up his opponent. "Just a black coffee," he said, his voice smooth but firm. "And maybe a slice of apple pie if you've got it." She nodded, jotting down the order. "Coming right up." As she walked away, the buzz of whispers filled the cafe. At the counter, Harry Walsh, a grizzled regular known for his outspoken opinions, leaned closer to his companion. "Can you believe that?" Harry muttered, his voice dripping with disdain. "They let anyone in here these days. Thinks he's better than us, just because he's rich and famous." Layla heard the comment, but chose to ignore it, focusing on preparing Floyd's order. Yet, as she brought the coffee and pie to his table, she couldn't help but notice the tension in the room. Floyd's calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the growing hostility in Harry's gaze. "Here you go," she said, setting down the plate and cup. "Enjoy." "Thank you," Floyd replied, his tone genuine, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. But before he could take a sip, Harry's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Hey, champ," Harry called out, his tone mocking. "You save the world one punch at a time? Huh? What are you even doing here? Slumming it with the rest of us?" The room fell silent. All eyes darted between Harry and Floyd. Layla froze, her heart pounding. She wanted to intervene, but hesitated, unsure if it was her place. Floyd, however, remained composed. "I'm just here for coffee, man," Floyd said evenly, not rising to the bait. Harry scoffed, leaning back in his chair. "Yes, sure." Another celebrity pretending to care about the little guy. Layla couldn't stay silent any longer. Setting down her tray, she turned to Harry, her voice steady but firm. "That's enough, Harry. He hasn't done anything to you. Let the man enjoy his coffee." Harry's eyes narrowed, a flush creeping up his neck. "You don't get to tell me what to do, Layla. This is my spot. I've been coming here for years, and that doesn't give you the right to be rude." She shot back, her hands trembling slightly, but her resolve unwavering. The tension in the cafe was thick enough to cut with a knife. Floyd watched the exchange silently, his expression unreadable. Harry muttered something under his breath and stood abruptly, slamming a few bills onto the table before storming out. The bell above the door jingled violently as it swung shut behind him. Layla exhaled, her hands still shaking. She glanced at Floyd, who gave her a small nod of gratitude. But as she turned back to the counter, she caught sight of Ella Jones, the cafe owner, watching her with a disapproving frown. "Layla," Ella said, motioning her over. Layla approached reluctantly, her stomach sinking. "Yes, ma'am. We need to talk," Ella said, her tone low but firm. The chapter ends with Layla glancing back at Floyd, a storm of emotions swirling in her chest, knowing that this moment was about to change everything. Ella Jones leaned against the counter, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, her expression a mix of frustration and exhaustion. The murmurs of the remaining customers barely registered in Layla's mind as she approached. She could already feel the weight of Ella's disappointment pressing down on her. "What were you thinking, Layla?" Ella said, her voice sharp but hushed, so as not to draw attention. "You don't argue with customers," especially not ones like Harry. He's been coming here for years. Layla swallowed hard, her hands clenching into fists at her sides. I wasn't arguing, Ella. I was standing up for someone who didn't deserve to be treated that way. Ella sighed, rubbing her temples. Look, I get it, but this is a business, not some moral battleground. We can't afford to lose regulars like Harry over. This? Layla repeated, her voice trembling with suppressed anger. Over basic decency? Since when is it okay to let people treat others like garbage just because they're regulars? Ella's expression hardened. I'm not saying it's okay, but I have to keep this place running. And your little outburst just made that a lot harder. Layla opened her mouth to respond but stopped herself, realizing it was futile. Ella had already made up her mind. The cafe's survival came first, and Layla was expendable. I think it's best if we part ways, Ella said finally, her words like a dagger to Layla's chest. You can finish your shift tonight, but after that, you're done. Layla stared at her in stunned silence. For years of loyalty, of showing up early and staying late, of knowing every regular's favorite dish and every crack in the worn linoleum floor. And it all ended like this. She wanted to fight back, to demand justice, but the lump in her throat made it impossible to speak. I understand, she said quietly, turning away before Ella could see the tears welling in her eyes. She busied herself with cleaning tables, her mind racing. The cafe, for all its flaws, had been her anchor. Without it, she had nothing, no backup plan, no savings, no idea what to do next. But as the evening dragged on, a quiet determination began to grow within her. She had stood up for what was right, and no one could take that away from her. As the last customers filtered out and Layla wiped down the counter for the final time, she felt a presence behind her. Turning, she saw Floyd standing there, his hands in his pockets, his expression thoughtful. Rough night, he said softly. Layla gave a bitter laugh. You could say that. I saw what happened, he continued. What you did back there. That took guts. She shrugged, trying to downplay the sting of her emotions. Didn't feel like it, just felt necessary. Floyd nodded, as if he understood more than he was letting on. Not everyone would have done what you did. Most people just look the other way. Yeah, well, Layla said, her voice tinged with sarcasm. Look where it got me. Fired and probably blacklisted from every diner in town. Floyd studied her for a moment, his gaze steady and unwavering. Sometimes doing the right thing costs more than it should, but that doesn't mean it's not worth it. Layla didn't respond, unsure of what to say. She appreciated his words, but they didn't change her reality. Tomorrow, she'd wake up unemployed, with bills piling up and no clear path forward. As if sensing her thoughts, Floyd reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. I run a foundation, he said, holding it out to her. We help people, especially people like you, who have the courage to stand up for what's right. If you ever need anything, give me a call. Layla hesitated before taking the card, the weight of it feeling heavier than it should. Thanks, she said quietly, unsure if she meant it. She wasn't the kind of person who took handouts, and she didn't know if she could start now. Floyd smiled faintly, a hint of respect in his eyes. Take care, Layla, and don't stop being you. With that, he turned and walked out, leaving Layla standing alone in the empty cafe. She stared down at the card in her hand, the glossy lettering catching the dim light. It felt like a lifeline, but also a reminder of how quickly her world had shifted. As she locked up for the night and stepped out into the cool Atlanta air, Layla couldn't shake the feeling that her story wasn't over yet. The chapter closed with her clutching the card tightly, a spark of defiance igniting in her chest as she began to imagine what might come next. The morning light filtered through the blinds of Layla's cramped apartment, highlighting the stacks of unpaid bills on the kitchen counter. She sat at the small table, staring at the business card Floyd had given her. The name of his foundation, Legacy of Champions, was embossed in bold gold letters, glinting under the sunlight. She traced her finger over the card, unsure if it was a lifeline or just another empty promise. Her phone buzzed, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was a text from her landlord, a curt reminder about rent being overdue. Layla sighed, the weight of reality pressing down on her chest. She had spent the past 4 years building stability, and it had all unraveled in a single night. But what stung more than losing her job was the way it happened, standing up for someone and being punished for it. Maybe I was a fool, she muttered under her breath. But even as the words left her lips, she knew she didn't believe them. Deep down, she felt a flicker of pride for defending Floyd. It was the one thing keeping her from completely breaking down. The card taunted her from across the table. For hours, she wrestled with her pride. Asking for help wasn't in her nature. She'd always fought her battles alone, relying on sheer grit to survive. But something about Floyd's calm, steady gaze the night before lingered in her mind. He hadn't looked at her with pity. He'd looked at her like she mattered. By noon, the tension became unbearable. With a deep breath, she picked up the card and dialed the number. The line rang twice before a warm, professional voice answered. Legacy of Champions, this is Anna speaking. How can I assist you? Layla hesitated, her grip tightening on the phone. Hi. My name is Layla Ramirez. Floyd Mayweather gave me this number and said I should call if I needed help. There was a brief pause, then a noticeable shift in Anna's tone. Yes. Mr. Mayweather mentioned you. Can you come by our office this afternoon? He'd like to meet with you personally. Layla blinked in surprise. This afternoon? Isn't he? She stopped herself, realizing how absurd her question sounded. Of course, Floyd Mayweather didn't work on anyone else's schedule. Yes, this afternoon, Anna confirmed with a light chuckle. I'll text you the address. See you soon. Before Layla could second-guess herself, she hung up. Her heart raced as she scrambled to find something suitable to wear. Her wardrobe consisted mostly of work uniforms and a few casual pieces, but she managed to piece together a simple but presentable outfit. She stared at herself in the mirror, straightening her hair and trying to suppress the anxiety bubbling within her. The Legacy of Champions office was nothing like she had imagined. It wasn't a flashy skyscraper or a sprawling complex, but a modest, modern building tucked into a revitalized part of the city. The glass doors gleamed under the sun, and the reception area was warm and inviting, with photos of smiling children and community events lining the walls. Anna, a poised woman in her early 40s, greeted Layla with a genuine smile. You must be Layla. Welcome. Mr. Mayweather is expecting you. Layla followed Anna through the hallways, her nerves heightened with every step. When they reached a large, sunlit office, Floyd was seated behind a desk, his focus on a stack of documents. He looked up as they entered, his expression softening into a smile. Layla, he said, standing and extending a hand. Glad you came? She shook his hand, her grip firm despite the butterflies in her stomach. Thanks for inviting me. Floyd gestured for her to sit. I meant what I said last night. You've got guts, and I respect that. The world needs more people like you. Layla felt her cheeks flush. I just did what anyone would have done. No, Floyd countered, his voice steady. Most people wouldn't. That's what makes you different. He leaned back in his chair, studying her for a moment. Here's the thing. My foundation is always looking for people who understand what it means to stand up for others. People who know what it's like to fight for what's right, even when it's not easy. I think you'd be a great fit. Layla's eyes widened. Wait, are you offering me a job? Floyd smiled. That depends. Are you interested? She stared at him, her mind racing. Part of her wanted to leap at the opportunity, but doubt crept in. Was she qualified? Could she handle this new world he was opening to her? I don't know, she admitted. I've never done anything like this before. Floyd leaned forward, his expression earnest. Neither did I when I started boxing. But I had someone who believed in me. Now I'm paying it forward. The question is, do you believe in yourself? The weight of his words hung in the air. Layla looked down at her hands, then back up at Floyd. For the first time in a long time, she felt something spark within her, a glimmer of hope, of possibility. I'll do it, she said finally, her voice steady. I'll give it everything I've got. Floyd grinned. That's what I wanted to hear. As Layla left the office that day, the sunlight felt a little warmer, and the city seemed a little brighter. For the first time, she felt like she was stepping towards something greater than herself. But deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. The next morning, Layla stood in front of the Legacy of Champions office, clutching her small bag and trying to calm the storm in her chest. The polished glass windows reflected her image back at her, nervous but resolute. This was her first day, and she couldn't shake the nagging voice in her head whispering, "What if you fail?" Pushing the thought aside, she walked inside. Anna was there to greet her, as warm and professional as before. "Good morning, Layla. Ready for your first day?" "As ready as I'll ever be," Layla replied with a half-smile, her hands tightening their grip on her bag. Anna led her through the office, pointing out departments and introducing her to a few team members. Everyone seemed genuinely kind, and Layla began to relax. The walls were lined with photos of smiling kids, families, and community events. The foundation's work felt tangible, real. She couldn't help but feel a growing sense of pride that she was now part of something bigger than herself. When they reached the conference room, Floyd was already there, reviewing a stack of documents. He looked up, offering her a nod of approval. "Layla, good to see you. Ready to dive in?" "I'll do my best," she said, her voice steady despite the nerves still buzzing beneath the surface. Floyd gestured for her to sit at the table as he slid a folder toward her. "We've got an upcoming event, a community outreach program. We're working with local shelters to provide resources and opportunities for underserved families. I want you to help organize it." Layla blinked, staring at the folder in disbelief. "Me? Already? Why not?" Floyd said with a small shrug. "You've got the heart for this, and Anna will guide you through the logistics." Anna gave her a reassuring smile. "You'll do great. It's not as overwhelming as it seems once you break it down." Layla opened the folder, scanning the details. The event was just a week away, and there were countless moving parts: volunteer coordination, supply distribution, setting up activities for kids. She felt a pang of doubt. This wasn't like waiting tables or remembering regulars' coffee orders. This was a completely new world. The week that followed was a whirlwind. Layla threw herself into the work, learning on the fly and leaning on Anna's guidance when she felt lost. She spent hours making calls, drafting schedules, and brainstorming ideas for making the event as impactful as possible. Every night, she returned home exhausted, but oddly fulfilled. For the first time, she felt like her efforts were truly making a difference. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. One afternoon, while finalizing the list of volunteers, Layla spotted a familiar name: Harry Walsh. Her stomach twisted. She double-checked, certain it was a mistake, but there it was in black and white. Harry, the man who had been the catalyst for her firing, had signed up to volunteer at the event. "Is this a joke?" she muttered under her breath. Anna noticed her expression. "Something wrong?" Layla hesitated, then sighed. "There's a volunteer, Harry Walsh. We've had issues." Anna raised an eyebrow. "Do you want me to remove him from the list?" Layla thought about it. Part of her wanted to say yes, to avoid the awkwardness and potential conflict. But another part of her, the part that had stood up to him in the cafe, refused to back down. "No," she said finally. "If he wants to help, let him. I'll handle it." The day of the event arrived, and the energy was electric. Families streamed into the park where the foundation had set up booths, activities, and resource stations. Layla moved through the crowd, ensuring everything ran smoothly. She felt a sense of pride watching kids laugh as they played games and parents relax as they received much-needed support. Then she saw him. Harry stood near one of the booths, awkwardly handing out flyers. He looked out of place, his usual confidence replaced with uncertainty. For a moment, Layla considered avoiding him, but something about his demeanor stopped her. She approached cautiously. "Harry!" He turned, startled to see her. "Layla! Hi!" There was an awkward silence before he cleared his throat. "Look, I know I wasn't the nicest person back at the cafe. I've been thinking a lot about what happened, and I'm sorry." The apology caught her off guard. She studied him, searching for any hint of insincerity, but his expression seemed genuine. "Why are you here?" she asked, not unkindly. Harry shrugged, looking down at the flyers in his hands. "After everything that went down, I realized I've been bitter. About a lot of things. I guess I wanted to try and do something good for a change." Layla didn't know how to respond. Part of her still harbored resentment, but another part admired the courage it took to admit he was wrong. "Well," she said finally, "it's a good start." For the rest of the day, Layla focused on the event, But the encounter with Harry lingered in her mind. It wasn't just about forgiveness. It was about growth for both of them. As the sun began to set and the event wound down, Floyd approached her, his hands in his pockets and a satisfied smile on his face. "You did good today," he said. "Thanks," Layla replied, her voice tinged with exhaustion but also pride. "It felt right?" Floyd nodded, his gaze scanning the crowd. "This is just the beginning. You got a lot more in you than you think." Layla smiled, a flicker of hope igniting within her. Maybe, just maybe, he was right. The day after the event, Layla found herself back at the office, surrounded by photos from the outreach program. Images of smiling children holding new backpacks, parents embracing volunteers, and Floyd posing with families decorated the bulletin board in the conference room. Anna stood nearby, organizing paperwork while Layla sifted through the photos, a quiet pride swelling in her chest. "You did an amazing job," Anna said, glancing at Layla with a warm smile. "The feedback has been incredible. Families were genuinely moved, and volunteers said it was one of the most organized events they've ever attended." Layla blushed slightly, still enthused to praise. "I couldn't have done it without you and the team." "True," Anna said with a teasing grin, "but you were the heart of it. Don't sell yourself short." Before Layla could respond, Floyd entered the room, his presence as commanding as ever. He carried a file folder, his expression serious but tinged with the hint of a smile. "Layla," he began, setting the folder on the table. "I need you to take a look at this." She opened the folder, her brows furrowing as she scanned the documents. It detailed plans for a new initiative aimed at providing job training and mentorship for at-risk youth in Atlanta. It was ambitious, involving partnerships with local businesses, community leaders, and schools. "We're planning to launch this in a few months," Floyd explained. "And I want you to lead the charge." Layla's head shot up, her eyes wide. "Me? Let it." "You've already proven you can handle pressure," Floyd said, his tone firm but encouraging. "This isn't just about logistics. It's about connecting with people, building trust, and creating something real. You got the passion for it." Layla hesitated, the weight of the opportunity pressing down on her. "This is huge. I don't know if I'm ready for something like this." Floyd's gaze softened. "No one's ever completely ready. But that's how you grow. I wouldn't ask you to do this if I didn't believe you could." His words resonated with her, stirring a deep sense of determination. She thought back to the outreach event, the faces of the people she'd helped, and the feeling of making a difference. "I'll do it," she said finally, her voice steady despite the nerves fluttering in her chest. "But I'm going to need a lot of guidance." Floyd smiled, his confidence in her unwavering. "You'll have it. We're in this together." As the weeks passed, Layla threw herself into the project. She met with business owners, spoke at schools, and coordinated with local leaders. Every step was a challenge, pushing her out of her comfort zone. But with Floyd and Anna's support, she found her footing. One afternoon, as she was preparing for a meeting, she received an unexpected visitor. Harry Walsh stood at the office entrance, holding a small box. His usually gruff demeanor was subdued, almost sheepish. "Layla," he said, shifting uncomfortably. "Got a minute?" She hesitated but nodded, gesturing for him to step inside. "What's up?" Harry placed the box on her desk and opened it, revealing a neatly folded apron from the cafe. I found this when I was cleaning out some old stuff. Thought you might want it." Layla stared at the apron, a flood of memories rushing back. "You kept it?" Harry scratched the back of his neck, avoiding her gaze. "Didn't feel right throwing it away. And well, I wanted to apologize. Again, for everything." She studied him, trying to reconcile this version of Harry with the man who had caused so much trouble months ago. "Why now?" Harry shrugged, his voice quieter than she'd ever heard it. "That event, it opened my eyes. Seeing you there, doing something real, made me realize I've been wasting my time being bitter. I want to help, really help." His sincerity caught her off guard. She nodded slowly. "If you're serious, we could use more volunteers for the new initiative." "Serious as I've ever been," Harry said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. The project's launch day arrived, and the city buzzed with excitement. Layla stood on the stage in front of a packed community center, her heart pounding as she prepared to speak. Floyd stood nearby, his presence a quiet reassurance. As she stepped up to the microphone, she took a deep breath. "Good afternoon, everyone. When I started this journey, I had no idea where it would lead. I was just an ordinary person trying to do the right thing in a moment of conflict. But that moment taught me something important. Change starts with courage, and courage is contagious." The audience erupted into applause, their energy electrifying the room. Layla glanced at Floyd, who gave her a small nod, his pride evident. Later that evening, as the event wound down, Layla found a quiet moment to reflect. She stood outside the community center, the city lights twinkling in the distance. Floyd joined her, his hands in his pockets. "You've come a long way," he said simply. Layla smiled, a mix of gratitude and disbelief washing over her. "Feels like a lifetime ago that I was standing in that cafe, wondering if I'd made the worst mistake of my life." Floyd chuckled. "Funny how life works, isn't it? One decision, and everything changes." She nodded, the weight of his words sinking in. "Thanks for believing in me." "Always," Floyd said, his voice steady. "This is just the beginning." As they stood there, the city buzzing quietly around them, Layla felt something she hadn't felt in years. A deep, unshakable sense of purpose. The weeks following the initiative's launch were a whirlwind of activity. Layla found herself busier than ever, coordinating mentorship programs, overseeing volunteer efforts, and managing logistics. The work was challenging, but every success felt like a small victory. The community's response had been overwhelmingly positive, and Layla finally felt like she was building something meaningful. One afternoon, as she worked in her small office at the foundation, Anna entered, her expression unusually tense. She closed the door behind her, holding a folder in her hand. "Layla, we need to talk," Anna said, placing the folder on the desk. Her tone was serious, and it instantly set Layla on edge. "What's going on?" Layla asked, leaning forward. Anna hesitated, then opened the folder, revealing a series of documents. "We received a tip this morning. Someone is trying to smear the foundation. They're accusing us of mismanaging funds from the initiative." Layla's stomach dropped. "What? That's impossible. We've been transparent about everything." "I know," Anna said, her voice calm but firm. "But these accusations are serious, and they're coming from someone within the community." Layla's mind raced. "Who?" Anna sighed. "Harry Walsh." The name hit Layla like a punch to the gut. She had just started to trust him, to believe in his desire to change. For him, to turn around and attack the foundation felt like a betrayal. "There must be some mistake," Layla said, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Why would he do this?" "I don't know," Anna admitted. "But Floyd wants to meet with you to discuss how we're going to handle this." Later that day, Layla found herself in Floyd's office, the weight of the situation pressing down on her. Floyd sat behind his desk, his expression unreadable, while Anna stood nearby. "Layla," Floyd began, his tone measured, "I need to know, how close were you to Harry?" Layla hesitated, guilt creeping into her voice. "Not close. I mean, he volunteered at the event, and we had a few conversations, but I thought he was trying to change." Floyd nodded slowly. "People don't change overnight, and some have motives they won't show until it's too late. I need you to be honest with me. Did you ever share sensitive information with him? Anything he could use against us?" "No," Layla said firmly. "Never. I would never compromise the foundation like that." Floyd leaned back in his chair, studying her. After a moment, he spoke. "I believe you, but we need to get ahead of this. If Harry's spreading false accusations, we'll need evidence to disprove them." Anna stepped forward. "We've already started an internal audit to ensure everything checks out. In the meantime, Layla, I think you should confront him." Layla's eyes widened. "You want me to talk to him? Who else?" Floyd said. "He knows you. If he's doing this out of spite, you might be the only one who can get through to him." Layla's chest tightened at the thought. Confronting Harry meant facing the possibility that she'd misjudged him entirely. But if there was a chance to clear the foundation's name and uncover the truth, she had to take it. "I'll do it," she said, her voice resolute. The next day, Layla found Harry at a local diner, sitting alone in a booth with a cup of coffee. He looked up as she approached, his expression a mix of surprise and discomfort. "Layla," he said cautiously, "what are you doing here?" "I need to talk to you," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. "About the accusations you're making against the Foundation." Harry's face darkened. "I'm not making accusations. I'm raising concerns." "Concerns?" Layla repeated, her voice sharp. "You're accusing us of mismanaging funds without a shred of evidence. Do you have any idea what that could do to the Foundation? To the people we're helping?" Harry shifted uncomfortably, avoiding her gaze. I don't trust it, Layla. Big organizations like that, they always have something to hide. Floyd's Foundation isn't like that," she said firmly. "You know that. You were there. You saw the impact we're making." Harry finally met her eyes, his expression conflicted. "Maybe, but people like me, we've been burned before. It's hard to believe anyone's really out to help." Layla softened, understanding his hesitation, but refusing to let him off the hook. "I get it. You've been hurt, and you're skeptical. But that doesn't give you the right to tear down something good just because you're afraid to trust it." Harry was silent for a long moment, his hands wrapped around his coffee cup. Finally, he spoke, his voice quiet. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I wanted to be sure." "Then help us," Layla said. "Come back, see the books, talk to Floyd. If you really care about the community, work with us, not against us." Harry looked at her, the conflict in his eyes slowly giving way to a flicker of shame. "I'll think about it," he said finally. Layla left the diner, feeling both relieved and uncertain. She had planted the seed, but whether it would grow was up to Harry. As she walked back to her car, her phone buzzed with a message from Anna. "Audit results clean. Ready to proceed with our response." Layla exhaled deeply, her determination renewed. Whatever came next, she knew she was ready to face it head-on. The morning was brisk, the air filled with a tense energy as the team at the Legacy of Champions prepared for their press conference. The results of the internal audit had cleared the Foundation of any wrongdoing, but the damage from the accusations lingered. Floyd insisted on a public response, and Layla found herself at the center of it all, standing next to him on the stage in front of reporters and cameras. The room buzzed with anticipation, the murmurs of journalists filling the air as they waited for the press conference to begin. Layla adjusted the microphone nervously, her palms damp despite the steady confidence she tried to project. Floyd placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You've got this," he said quietly, his calm presence grounding her. "Just speak from the heart." The room fell silent as Floyd stepped forward to address the crowd. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. Over the past few weeks, our foundation has faced serious allegations regarding our financial practices. I want to set the record straight, not just for the sake of our reputation, but for the people we serve." He glanced at Layla, a subtle nod urging her to take the spotlight. She swallowed hard and stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her chest. "My name is Layla Ramirez, and I've had the privilege of working with the Legacy of Champions over the past few months," she began. "I came here as someone who didn't know what to expect, but what I found was an organization deeply committed to changing lives. Mine included." She paused, letting her words sink in. "The allegations against us are baseless, and the results of our independent audit prove that. But this isn't just about defending our integrity. It's about standing up for the communities we serve, the children who rely on us for opportunities, and the families who count on us for hope." The reporters scribbled furiously, cameras clicking as Layla's voice grew stronger. "We're not perfect. No organization is. But what sets us apart is our transparency and our commitment to doing what's right, even when it's hard." As she stepped back, the room erupted in applause. Floyd smiled at her, pride evident in his eyes. "Told you," he murmured. "You've got this." After the press conference, Layla felt a weight lift off her shoulders. The truth was out, and the Foundation's reputation was intact. But her work wasn't done. That afternoon, Harry Walsh called her, his voice hesitant but sincere. "Layla," he began, "I saw the press conference. You were impressive." "Thanks," she replied cautiously, unsure of where he was going with this. "I thought about what you said," Harry continued, "about working with you instead of against you. and I'd like to help. For real this time? Layla smiled faintly, relief washing over her. We could use someone like you, Harry. But this time, no shortcuts. You're either all in, or you're out. All in, he said firmly. Over the next few weeks, Harry proved his sincerity, volunteering tirelessly at the foundation. He became an unlikely ally, helping Layla with outreach efforts and even assisting with logistics for future events. His transformation wasn't lost on Layla, who marveled at how much a single act of kindness could ripple through someone's life. Meanwhile, Floyd called a meeting with Layla and Anna to discuss the foundation's next steps. He had ambitious plans to expand their programs, and he wanted Layla to take on a more significant leadership role. You've earned it, Floyd said, his tone leaving no room for doubt. You've proven that you can handle anything that comes your way. Layla hesitated, overwhelmed by the opportunity. I don't know if I'm ready for this. You weren't ready when I handed you that first event, Floyd reminded her. But you figured it out. You'll figure this out too. Layla took a deep breath, the weight of his trust settling over her. I'll do it, she said, determination shining in her eyes. The final event of the year was a grand community gala, a celebration of everything the foundation had accomplished. The atmosphere was electric, with families, volunteers, and supporters coming together to recognize the impact of their collective efforts. As Layla mingled with the crowd, she caught sight of Harry helping a group of children with an art project. The sight made her smile, a reminder of how far they had both come. Floyd approached her, holding 2 glasses of sparkling water. You've built something incredible here, he said, handing her a glass. You should be proud. I couldn't have done it without you, she replied, her gratitude evident. Floyd shook his head. You had it in you all along. I just gave you the push. As the evening wound down, Floyd took the stage to give his closing remarks. He spoke of perseverance, community, and the power of standing up for what's right. But before he stepped down, he called Layla to join him. This foundation is built on people who believe in making a difference, he said, his voice resonating through the hall. And Layla Ramirez is one of those people. She's not just a part of this foundation. She's the heart of it. The crowd erupted into applause as Layla stood beside him, overwhelmed with emotion. In that moment, she realized how far she'd come. From a waitress defending a stranger in a cafe to a leader making a tangible impact on her community. As the applause died down, Floyd leaned over and said quietly, "This is your legacy too, Layla. Don't ever forget that." The night ended with Layla standing outside the gala, gazing up at the stars. She felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing she had found her purpose. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had been worth every challenge. This was just the beginning.